at least 5 types of game mods can be observed: user interface customization, game conversions, machinima and art mods, game computer customization, and game console hacking, end quote. So under the user interface mods, those could be something like adjusting the in-game identity of a player, customizing the color palette of a game design, or modifying in-game information management. An example of a game conversion mod is you could add or modify the appearance or capabilities of the game itself, the objects like the levels or some of the rules or even mechanics of the game. And then if you modify it completely, it's what's usually called a total conversion mod, where everything is modified and it's sometimes done in parity. So for example, there's a game called Chex Quest, which was basically a non-violent total conversion of a game called Doom. So Doom was a first-person shooter, a very violent-looking game, and then the game was modded into a serial type of game that was non-violent. So it was very different from the original. And that's considered to be like a total conversion mod, where it looks completely different and behaves differently. Okay, so here's a quote on what machinima is. So machinima is a form of modding the experience of playing a specific game through a recording of its visual play session history, so as to achieve some other ends beyond the enjoyment or frustration of gameplay, end quote. So in other words, an example of a machinima is people might record their gameplay session from different angles and turn it into a story. So a very famous example of this is the red versus blue machinima stuff, where they were playing the game Halo, and they basically created like characters and a full story, often comical, where it was like different perspectives of the characters in the game that often were set in the game world, but didn't really have anything to do with the gameplay itself. So it's basically taking a video game and using it as your own environment for creating movies. And the author says that art mods, quote, modify the gameplay experience through manipulation, intervention, appropriation, or other creative transformation of a game's original visual content as it is consumed by users during a play session, end quote. So in other words, instead of making an environment that looks realistic, like with the forest and trees, maybe you'd change the environment so it looks like Candyland, like the trees are made out of, I don't know, popsicles or something, and lollipops as opposed to like pine and birch. Now, the final example, the game console hacking, it's actually something that I talk about a lot in my dissertation. There's a lot of examples of people who modified video game consoles and hardware in order to make music with it. So if you want to learn more about that, you can. However, the author describes game console hacking as like customizing a gaming PC for the purposes of modding or creating a specialized PC. So an example of this that the author provides is overclocking CPUs with liquid cooling devices. So it's making it so that the CPU actually performs faster than is originally intended, so that way you can squeeze a little bit more performance out of your device. And this often requires a lot of expensive tools. Now, in addition, some people actually modify their cases of their consoles or PCs. Rather than making it perform better, they just want it to look more aesthetically pleasing. So that's also a finding that I found in my dissertation, where people would include video game artwork on their new creations that they made by modifying a video game console.